right, so this morning I'm going to be listening to another piece by Jose Julio Díaz Infante. I think we've listened to at least two of his pieces. I'll put the episode numbers at the bottom there. This is an orchestra piece which he wrote in 2010, and it's titled Sator, Arepo, Tenet, Opera, Rotas, which is nicely visualized on the title page here. You can see that this Roman phrase, I believe, this phrase can be read from left to right or from like top to bottom, and it creates this nice little square. I guess it's almost like a meme because it at the time when we started seeing this in history, it makes an actual sentence, but it also creates this visual pattern. The ensemble is 3-2-2-2, 4-3-3-1, and then timp, two percussionists, piano, and strings. And it's about 15 minutes long. I was scrolling through this yesterday, and it seems to have some interesting uses of the ensemble. There's moments where we have just the winds and brass for a long time. There's a solo piano moment that's quite long near the beginning. So in that sense, I'm a little bit excited just to hear what this sounds like. I don't think I've ever listened to it before, honestly. If you want Díaz Infante's biography, it's in this episode. And if you would like to listen to the same recording that I'm listening to today, it's in the video description. Other than that, I have not much to say. I guess I should also mention the first percussionist only has to deal with marimba, second percussionist vibraphone, and the timpani are 32-inch, 26-inch, and 23-inch. You only need 3 drums. And the first flute is on piccolo as well. So, pretty standard ensemble other than those percussion quirks there. I expect it to be very notey with the marimba vibes and piano. So, so this is a really nice recording, and let me just subscribe to Jose's YouTube channel here. So this seems to have been performed at the International Forum of New Music, Manuel Enriquez, and it's Mexico City performance, National Symphony Orchestra of Mexico, conducted by Jose Luis Castillo. And I found this comment interesting, actually. Yeah, there was a student of his who was asking, like, so I composed a miniature for orchestra based on the Sator palindrome thing, and wanted to know your creative process. And I think his response is at the top here, where he says, like, well, it's not that rare to use the magic square. Messiaen did it, Webern did it, but in my case, I found it after I wrote the piece. So I thought that was kind of a funny exchange. I think it's easy to overthink titles, and the fact is a lot of composers do not think of the title first. They just come to it after. And I didn't hear anything that was magic square-y about this piece. I think it's just a good title. Yeah, so my thoughts, I thought the orchestration was like super interesting, as I predicted, and I think it's set up in a really interesting way. He gives you some full orchestra stuff that's very dissonant, and then you get this piano figure extracted from this like sound mass thing, and then that becomes this repetitive sort of groovy thing. This is about 4 minutes into the piece. And then that sort of sets up this other world of the orchestra, which is like a bunch of soloists playing together without strings. I think he sets it up with like piano, then tuba, then bass trombone. And he plays around with the winds a bit. There's some other interesting solo moments with like horn and I'm trying to think. Like the vibes and marimba sort of work together as a unit, and they often have similar stuff that the piano has and fulfill a similar role. So that was kind of cool. And I liked that the full orchestra stuff was often not micropolyphonic, but sort of close to that. Like he took these melodic cells and made sort of sound mass textures out of them, which was really fun. The first example of it we have is like this sort of thing, where you have a lot of 5 against 3 against 4. And yeah, it was surprisingly fun and interesting, and I want to hear more orchestra pieces like this. It's very bold in its choices, and yeah, it's obviously it requires a lot from the pianist, and it's almost like a concerto, but I think it's a really cool thing. I should say that I think this piece is actually really useful for students. Like if you want to recommend something to a student who's trying to do like something in between tonal and atonal stuff, like trying to work with tonal materials in a way that's a bit more abstract. This is a super interesting thing to share. Also, if you want to show them how to use like pitched percussion instruments basically in a soloistic way without going full concerto with it, this is a interesting like case study for your student to look at, because it's got marimba, vibes, piano, doing all that stuff. The next one's going to be a really big one. It's Speakings by Jonathan Harvey, which is one of his earcom works, probably his biggest work that he composed at earcom. And it's all about like spectral analysis of the human voice, so it's kind of interesting. I don't think I've given it a full listen before. I've heard excerpts of it. There's a famous like moment where I think the orchestra speaks, and I don't know how convincing it is without subtitles, but I think it says "I love you" or something like that. So, yeah, that'll be cool. It also has electronics in it, so that'll be our first piece for orchestra and electronics.